actually kind of nerve-wracking. I'm used to a megaphone and bike cops and big crowds everywhere. So I'm just going to pretend this is my megaphone. Bear with me. Hello everyone, my name is Aretha Basu, and I am a non-black person of color ally. I'm also an organizer with Women of Color for Systemic Change. I've been involved with social justice from a very young age, mostly around the issue of human trafficking, particularly South Asian women and children. Thanks to my aunt, Aretha Basu, who's the director of the Women's Center at UW. I've been a part of the Black Lives Matter movement now for 5 months. When the non-indictment came out, I witnessed the outrage and hurt of the Black community. I didn't think twice about joining the movement. It was instinctual. To not act is an injustice itself. And I knew that if I chose to ignore the issue, if I chose to stand idly while law enforcement continued to abuse their power, my silence would speak for me. Right? I would be choosing the side of the oppressor. Right? Right? As I attended the protests during the first few weeks following the non-indictment, I would leave feeling very empty, like I hadn't really made a change. Aside from the protests that I took part in on Black Friday, I felt a lack of representation of people of color within the movement. I noticed that white allies were speaking the narrative of the Black community instead of giving space for the narrative to be spoken. The Black community needed to lead the movement, while allies like myself supported them. So when Harmony approached me about organizing the protest on December 6th, I was more than ready. I wanted to help provide a platform for the Black community to speak their truth, especially the youth. During the weeks leading up to our protest, I went to several other protests. One in particular was quite disturbing. Jasmine and I went to a protest taking place at Westlake that was organized by the October 22nd Coalition. While we were in the crowd, I heard the organizers, mostly older white people, trying to spread the message of all lives matter. All lives matter. I remember looking at Jasmine and thinking, what the hell? And so I asked to use their megaphone. I asked all the people of color to come to the middle of the circle, and I said, these are the people that need to be leading, and these are the people that need to be on the mic. Immediately, one of the organizers steps to me and says, this affects everyone. This is about all lives. And quickly, Jasmine and I said, this is not about all lives. This is about Black lives, and you, as an ally, need to step back so the people affected can speak for themselves. We then took their megaphone, led their protest, and screamed Black Lives Matter. As an ally, it is imperative that we center Blackness. That is what this movement is about. It is not about everyone's oppressions. I am an Indian woman, and the oppressions against my community are very different from what my Black sisters and brothers are experiencing. As allies, we need to claim our privilege and understand our roles. We must use our privilege to further the movement. I know I have the privilege to choose whether or not to be a part of this movement. I have the privilege of continuing my daily life without this issue directly affecting me. You don't see cops targeting South Asians the way they do the Black and African American community. In addition to the criminal justice system increasing its persecution, the system has continually and blatantly devalued, dehumanized, and dismissed the Black and African American community. So how does a non-Black person of color be a good ally? Because being a person of color ally is quite different from being a white ally. People of color have experienced systemic oppression. But what we must remember is this is not the oppression Olympics. We are not here to prove who has been oppressed the most by the screwed up system. We are not free until all of us are free. because there are issues between different people of color communities does not negate the fact that our liberations are tied. For example, the Four Amigos, Bernie Whitebear, Bob Santos, Roberto Maestas, and Larry Gossett. They were all of different races, but they came together during the Black Power movement because they understood that the issue needed to be fought from all sides. We, as people of color, need to be a united front and support our Black and African American sisters and brothers in order to sustain the movement. In addition, people of color allies have another responsibility. It is very easy for us to call out white folks on their anti-Blackness. But you cannot call out a white person if you are silent to the anti-Blackness within your own community. As people of color allies, it is our duty to not only challenge the anti-Blackness within our communities, but to work against it and eradicate it. Speaking on the South Asian community, anti-Blackness is rampant. It is so deeply embedded in my culture that it is even in our religion. I will share with you the story of Lord Krishna, who is a Hindu god. There is a king named Lord Krishna. He was a benevolent leader that people believed to be a reincarnation of one of the three main gods, the destroyer, the creator, or the preserver. However, he had very dark skin, as do most indigenous Indians. But the disrespect and discrimination is so extreme that people wouldn't worship a dark-skinned god because they believed it was impossible for him to have a good soul. So in order to make Lord Krishna an acceptable god, he was depicted to have blue skin. It was more acceptable for his worshippers to worship someone with blue skin than dark skin. Meanwhile, India is one of the largest consumers of skin whiteners and skin bleaching in the world. This is anti-Blackness in my community. And as an ally, it is my job to call it out. As people of color, we are not immune to bias, and it is important to acknowledge the fight our biases. We must continuously check ourselves as allies in order to be effective in this movement. And so I ask you, my fellow people of color allies, what are you doing to challenge the anti-Blackness in your communities? Black Lives Matter.